PokeClass is sponsored by CollectorsCash.com, who now have your new set Next Destinies in stock at amazing prices. Get your boxes, sealed products and single cards like Mewtwo EX for the most competitive prices around, as well as all of your current format goodies within easy reach. If you're looking to stock up on anything Pokemon or any other card game for that matter, then head over to CollectorsCash.com after the show. Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 61 of PokeClass. The ECC has just finished a few days ago with results showing us how the format should be looking until the next set comes out closer to Nationals. This tournament's results shaped the meta game for pretty much the entire world, with everyone keeping a keen eye on what does well so that they can prepare for the states and regionals coming up in the near future. In this episode, I actually have two lists for you, both the winning one and the one that came second, so without further ado, let's get straight to it. To win Masters, we saw a massive attendance of 228, so getting to the top 32 was going to be tough. Mewtwo EX was the card most people had their eyes on doing well, and that did turn out to be the case, with almost every deck in the top 32 running at least one copy, some even going up to 3, showing that this card does and will have a huge impact on the format. In the end, this is what the top 32 look like in terms of deck representation. So as expected, Electric has stolen the show, with exactly half of the decks in Top Cut being based around it either with Magnezone or Zekrom and friends. What I do find interesting is that 5 of those Electric decks did have Magnezone, a deck people thought was slowly decreasing in power because of the speed of the likes of Zekrom. What Magnezone does have, with a good start, is the draw power for the rest of the game, something that Zekrom Ills needs to have in form of supporters, which aren't always going to be drawn. The downside is that Magnezone is now one-hit KO'd by the likes of Zekrom and Reshiram EX, and after putting in the effort to set it up, that's quite the loss, especially when you can't return the KO easily if that was your only Magnezone in play. However, Magnezone players can utilise both Mewtwo and Zekrom EX of their own, which could have given them a leg to stand on when moving up the tables. The EX war is hot right now, and playing smart with your own and having that built-in draw power helped 5 of them get to the top 32. Durant was a deck that everyone thought had gotten better through the release of Next Destinies, and they're correct, but there isn't as many hitting the top 32 as I personally would have thought there would. However, with the extremely high count of Zekrom around, Durant just could have been too slow to keep up with the consistent Bolt Strikes and Outrages coming their way. By the time it came to top 8, all of the Durants had left the competition, and interestingly enough, one of the Durant decks in Top Cut did run Shaman EX, which does make a little bit of sense since you can bring it out right at the end of the game when your opponent is sitting there with just the one attacker, and take the game while they sit at just one prize card remaining. This is a very smart play and adds to the surprise factor Durant has on the format right now. The only thing is getting energy onto it fast enough to actually surprise the opponent and take that quick KO. Other interesting top cutters include the Truth and Donphan Dragons. Both, I would presume, are extremely good choices for the meta on the day. Seeing as though over 40% of the decks in Top Cut were Zekrom Eels, you can safely assume that the rest of the field was swarming with them, which both the Truth and Donphan Dragons have really good matchups against. If the Zekrom Eels player doesn't play Tornadus, which isn't uncommon at the moment, they have no answer to constant rushes of Donphans taking out all of their fighting weak Pokemon. The Truth was going to struggle with beating the likes of the new EXs, simply because they broke the barrier of the 120 damage output. However, Kyurem EX is now a top contender for that non-one-shottable Pokemon, since nothing in the format, bar Magnezone, can actually take it out with one attack. With a massive 180 HP, you could take hits from everything, even Cavalion, and hit for 120 damage every other turn, while discarding special energy on the turns in between. This led to it taking a top 32 spot, so it doesn't look like the Truth is down and out just yet. The Mewbox deck was also an interesting one since it didn't run Vileplume and had a variety of techs to beat out anything it was up against. Rumoured partners are Terrakion, Yanmega, Jumpluff, Crobat, and the Fire-type Chandelure, making it easy to take down the popular Mewtwo EX, as well as return KO any Lightning-type Pokemon thrown its way. Cake and the original Chandelure also make an appearance, with the Cake version taking both Terrakion and Kyurem EX to pile energy onto with Energy Mine, doing well against the electric decks swarming the field. Chandelure isn't too odd to see here, since it does have a really good matchup against EXs, since status conditions can stop them dead in their tracks while hitting the likes of Mewtwo EX for double damage. The only thing it does suffer from is onslaughts of Reshiram and Zekrom EX, as well as Magnezone, which could have been the reason why, by the time top 8 happened, it wasn't in the running anymore. Other classics, such as Reshiram Typhlosion, Yanmega Magnezone, and Typhlosion Magnezone took a spot each in this cup, showing that even though newer decks are out there, the classics can still alter their builds to keep up. Let's move on to the final results now, and in the final we saw David with his Celebi Mewtwo build take on Ben with his Zekrom Eels deck in an eventful final. Usually, I would say the matchup was in the Zekrom player's favour, but David beat the odds and took Celebi to victory. Now, I have spoken to both of the finalists and they have agreed to let me post their lists on this video, so first up, let's look at Ben's Zekrom Eels. As you can see, he only gave me the Pokemon line because he does want to use the deck again and doesn't want to reveal the whole list, which is understandable, but this is definitely something to go by when building your own version. The Pokemon are actually quite different than you would expect from a Zekrom Eels deck, and the first thing that jumps out at me is the lack of regular Zekrom. On speaking to him, he simply felt that it wasn't needed, and with a total of 3 Mewtwo's in here, he couldn't be lacking the firepower needed to topple opposing Zekrom. 2 Zekrom EX is pretty much standard for the deck, and those 3 Mewtwo means that you'll win almost all of the Mewtwo trade-offs, even against Mewtwo Celebi. Onto his text, and he runs a single Terrakion for the mirror, a card that saw a lot of play at the ECC for exactly the same reason, and the uncommon Absol Prime for both the Chandelure matchup and mirror match since it brings opposing Mewtwo and Zekrom into easier range of KOs with some plus power help. If your opponent is forced to bring Mewtwo into play while Absol is active, you will be able to one-shot it back with Zekrom EX rather than using your own Mewtwo, preserving them for later on. Shaymin and Thundurus are also questionable options for the Zekrom Eels player, but both find their place in here to both collect and move energy around when your opponent least expects it. Another reason he didn't include regular Zekrom, simply because he had the option of moving energy around so freely. And that's pretty much it to analyse the Pokemon side of the list. I wouldn't think it would be too difficult to put your own spin on his list by filling in the rest yourself, so why don't you give it a go? On to the winner now, and here is his full Celebi Mewtwo list named Ecstasy by David as a play on the deck called Coke, also in the format. As you can see, there is nothing really out of place here at all. The ECC is an absolutely massive tournament and consistency is going to be key, which is shown perfectly right here. 4 Pond, 4 Juniper and 3 Pokegear make this list crazily fast and consistent, not forgetting those 4 N as well to both serve as shuffle draw in the early game and disruption in the late game, something that not all lists of Celebi have maximum of. One thing about the Pokemon line is only 2 Mewtwo over the standard 3, but Shaymin from Unleashed is in there to move energy around when things are getting too damaged, or to add an extra surprise attack onto your opponent. The rest of the list is actually really simple. The lack of Terrakion will surprise most people since it's easiest splashable in this deck, but it turns out consistency beats teching this time. Who knew? This version also had a lack of Pokemon Collector, which is starting to become standard in Celebi builds, simply because you only run 11 Pokemon, one of which you have to start with, so not a massive amount of search is needed over Dual Ball, presuming the flips go your way. And to be honest, that's all I can say about the list. It's fast, can take prizes as soon as turn 1, and select any target it wants through Max Catcher and Junkarn. What else could you want? What does strike me, and a lot of other players as interesting, is the fact that this build managed to be arguably its hardest matchup in a best 2 out of 3 game. And the only solution I can think of is that it did what it does best, attacks from turn 1 and takes prizes off of both Dynamo and Electric with plus power, and can return KO Mewtwo with a simple energy drop from Celebi 2. But since Ben ran 3 of his own Mewtwo, things in theory should have gone Ben's way. But anything can happen in Pokemon. Let's hope that we can see some kind of match footage or wait on a report from either player to see what actually went down. The most I know is that Ben did have 2 of his 3 mini eels prized in one of the games, which could have set him back quite a bit. Other than that, that is this year's European Challenge Cup all tied up for you. Congrats to all players that did well, including everyone in Top Cup, and players from the UK making it as far as they did, and it's been proven that this format just sped up a whole lot more. Electric and Celebi accelerate into Tier 1 as everything else gets swiftly left behind. Thanks for watching this week's episode of PokeClass. Make sure you rate, comment and subscribe as usual. Make sure you check out my Let's Play and PCCGO games I've been uploading, with more to come over the next week.
Till I get home so I can find